You want to start, Dov?
Sure. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here for another Join Us Tuesdays for Present Happiness. And I'm just going to mention that today is what's called Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and it's a day of renewal. You're letting go of the past, and we're into a new day, a new year. And the next 10 days, at least in the Jewish calendar, is very holy because in 10 days they have what's called the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement, which is Yom Kippur. And that's a day in which this next year you're either sealed into the book of life or something else. Now, of course, that's just a religion. You take what you want of any kind of religion and you let the rest go. At least I do. But I think it is very worthy to just take a look at the fact that every moment of now is a new moment. Every now is a new now. And that's pretty much what the Course is saying. You can only experience yourself in the now, not in the past, not in the future. Past and future does belong to the ego. The ego has a time, a horizontal axis. It moves you from it moves the body from when you're born to the time that you leave your body. But that is not the eternal changelessness that God gives to his son. And you can only experience that changelessness in the here and now. You can call it the holy instant. You can call it anything you want, but that's where the present happiness is. We talk about present happiness. In the past, you probably have things that are grievances, things that you wish didn't happen, loss, lack, but none of that really means anything in the here and now, literally. So you are refreshed, renewed in every moment of now. And the Course is very clear. No moment of now is connected to the last moment of now, or to the next moment of now. So there's no judgment possible because all judgment comes from the past. I had asked if we could put up a picture of Bob Dylan, but we couldn't get the slide to work. But I did put up in the chat, and I guess I'll re-put it up in case you walked in a little bit later. And it's something from Bob Dylan, which I guess I cannot imagine Dylan saying it, but he was nominated and made poet laureate just this past year. And I don't think you get to be poet laureate easily. This is what Bob Dylan says. I define nothing, means I judge nothing. Not beauty, not patriotism. I take each thing as it is. I take each thing as it is without prior rules about what it should be. To me, that's the entire Course of Miracles. I mean, when he says in lesson number 1, nothing I see here means anything. And just in case you think anything means something, go on to lesson 2. He's saying that, yeah, I'm the one that gives meaning to everything. And that's what the ego does. The ego knows what everything is for because it has given meaning to everything. It's named everything, and it knows what everything is, and what's good, what's bad, what's right, what is wrong. And that is what we listen to.
Excuse me, can you all mute yourselves? And then we'll get rid of that sound unless you're speaking.
Yeah. I saw a quote the other day, which I think is a real keeper, even though I just said, don't hold on to anything. It says the ego mind learns to retain, to hold on to. Spirit learns to let go. So in the letting go process, you're really saying, I don't really know what anything is for. That happens to be my mantra lesson 25. I've had it for the last 16 years. I realized prior to that time I took it on as a mantra, I wanted to be right about everything. And that's pretty much what the ego does want to do. It wants to be right at the expense of someone else's not being right, being wrong. So Jesus says to us very clearly, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Choose one. You can't have both. The easiest way to let go of being right, and I've said this here on other occasions, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is not being right anymore. That's the kindest thing, is stop being right. And I've picked up on that many moons ago. I still get caught in my own stuff, but as soon as I get caught in it, I realize I'm doing this to myself. Only the ego wants to be right. Spirit has no need to be right. Spirit is a free spirit. It knows what the truth is, doesn't want to be right. It doesn't see anybody as wrong. It sees all the same. That's what love is. Love sees all the same. For the function of love is one. The function of love is oneness. So I just wanted to start off with that. In every moment of now, there is renewal. In every moment of now, you don't take the last moment or you don't take the next moment. It's free and clear, exactly what Bob Dylan says. I take each thing as it is without prior rules about what it should be. I look at everything perfectly clear. And it's in that clarity that you get all your power. Because anything other than that is judgment. And we know from lesson 198, only my judgment, only my condemnation injures me. Only my forgiveness sets me free. What are we forgiving? We're forgiving those thoughts in which we thought that we were right, when as a matter of fact, that was the ego telling us what to do. So I open with that and I turn over to Rosalyn, and maybe Rosalyn wants to share some more on this.
I do, because you're speaking my language of oneness. And I've come up with a term for myself, which is the radical now. And the radical now is everything that Dov said and Bob Dylan said. But for me, what it means, in addition to no past and no future, it means no story, which is exactly what Bob Dylan was saying. It's amplifying what Dov said. How do we get to no story? So we all came in here. We could say the now is we're sitting together on a Zoom call. But actually, the now is further back than that. The now, because we may have feelings or thoughts about being in the Zoom call, reactions to what Dov said, thoughts about your day. You've been sitting at the computer, now you're a little uncomfortable, or you are. It's behind that. It's behind all thoughts, all feelings, all personality, everything you came in with. And I found that now when I was in the middle of suffering. I'm sorry Rose is not here yet. We had somebody coming tonight, but maybe she'll listen to the replay. And when people are actively going through grief, as I was when I discovered that right in the middle of suffering, feeling like my life was over because my daughter passed and it was unexpected and it was a shock, and who knows what I was thinking, some variety of that, because I was stopped. And many of you heard this story before. I was still a grieving mother. I still remembered she died. But I had to face that in this second, in this millisecond. The truth was, there was only oneness. There was only nothing. The nothing that's everything. It had no story. It wasn't a oneness that was a high, like a groovy day where you're in the flow and everything goes your way. No, it wasn't that. It was, the suffering was gone. But there was no me and there was no Melissa, even though I remembered everything. There was just everything and nothing. So let's have our own experience with that. Rose, is that you with CTR? Oh, good. I'm glad you're here for this.
Thanks.
I was looking for the name Rose. Before we go into meditation, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us something? I know you've been grieving, but I don't know anything about what happened. Do you want to or not? Does that
If that's the topic for this evening, I'm not sure because I want to contribute in a meaningful
topic. Everyone, and I know you need to leave. So why don't you just tell us something and then we'll go to meditation and come back to you. So tell us how long were you married and tell us something.
Okay. Well, yeah, in the last 6 months of 2020, I lost 5 significant people. My sister, my cousin who was like a sister, and in the span of 1 week, the first week of October, I lost 3 very close friends, each one of decades. And none of them died of COVID. So that, I mean, doesn't matter if they die of COVID or not. It's just that in a time when you really need your close connections even more, all of a sudden, bingo, 5 were gone. 5 of my innermost circle.
That's a big wallop.
That was it. It still is a big wallop. I'm still, dealing with it.
And you're coming to the anniversary, which we.
Right. Yeah. There's 4 anniversaries are coming right up. 3 in October and 1 in November. So it's yeah.
So it wasn't a husband. It was these people that you mentioned, or a husband too.
Well, I lost my husband in the past before that.
When was that?
I was just well, we don't need to go into all the details. I've just had enough grief and enough loss. Let's just put it that way.
So let's hold Rose's grief inside our hearts, knowing that it's a big shock. It's a big shock, and we'll talk about stages of grief later if that's relevant. But let's just take in that shock for all of us, all those losses, all those changes. Even losses isn't our interpretation, but we understand that we're connected to other beings in the relative world. And so it's a big shock. Shock isn't even a good enough word, right? Raise your hand if you feel that it's a big wallop. Raise your hand. I mean, 100%. Everybody understands that, feels that. And so now let's go into meditation. But each of you, while you're holding what you perceive, what you imagine, what you connect with, since you don't know Rose and you don't know those people, but you know something of what she said. And now go into your day and give a number. Rose, you can give a number just for today, 0 to 10. How difficult was the holding of or the experience of all those losses? Give it a number.
It was 11.
Okay, so give it a 10, and
Yeah.
I'll have you mute yourself until we come out of meditation. And so she's got an 11, and everybody give a number to your day. Just something that annoyed you, something where you lost your peace in a second. Doesn't have to be a whole day, just a moment. Give it a number. The most aggravating is the best one to look at if you had several. And notice as you review your day that none of these moments stayed. even in 11, even when the shock of the words, when the policeman said, rigor mortis has set in with your daughter, that level of pain did not stay the same. I might have thought it was all the same, but there were the nightmares and the daymares and the whatever there was eating and there was an attempt at sleeping and there was variety, even when it seems like the mind wants to say it's all pain, all the same. So let's go back to our day. And let's take a deep breath as we park that 11 or that 0 or that 2 or that 5, whatever it was. Let's just park it. And let's park it in the mind, in the brain, in the head, where we often believe we are, that we reside from this personal brain. And you've probably heard that the body is mostly made up of water. If it's measured in molecules, it's 96% water. If it's measured another way, it's about 60%. But even with our brilliant brains that we give so much focus to, so much idolization, we don't even know that we're made up of all that water. So much for the knowing of the brain. But let's connect to that water now in the oneness. And we're moving toward the oneness. We're not there yet, but we've opened the door with our willingness to find that oneness in our experience. And actually, you might ask yourself, am I in this millisecond willing to find peace? Or are these incomplete relationships needing for me to suffer to pay the price? It's often said with grief that grief is the price of love. I don't believe that. I believe love is the price of love. But we have to find that ourselves. We can't be told stuff like that. Nobody could have told me that. I wouldn't have even listened to somebody. So let's go back to the water. Let's take a light, any kind of light you want, a clear light, a purple light, a pink light, a red light, a blue light. Focus it on the water. And now have that water be a color. And it's flowing all through you, up and down and out your extremities, in and around your toes, filling your eyes with softness, breathing in, breathing out, and noticing the space between the in-breath and the out-breath. You're all muted, so you can make a sigh and nobody will hear you. And notice you might have had a little judgment about the sound I made, or you didn't. Or you might have a judgment about my voice, or you didn't. It's all good. And so let's take this water body and have it be behind us and move out through our hearts into the space of the room and feel as though the space in the room is holding your pink light, your blue light, your red light, whatever light you chose. It's holding your body as well. And now the light is moving in and outside your body, into the room, all around the objects of your room, underneath your feet, underneath your chair, above you, around you, and you are suddenly being held by the room. Some of us didn't know we could be held by a room. And let's take the air and push out from the room, out into the atmosphere. Let's just breathe in the air outside. We can actually do this with eyes open or closed. Most of us close our eyes, but eyes open remind us that the rest of the time we can be in this place and navigate the world. And be in the weather that's wherever you are, whether it's evening and it's dark, or whether it's not dark yet because it's summer, or whether it's afternoon. Go beyond the weather to the sky that's always behind the clouds. Just like the real you is always present behind the personality. The real you is what is knowing this experience. The real you knows how to drive your car when you forget to pay attention, and it gets you where you were going. The real you is present every night before you go to sleep. There's that little bit of space before you've fallen asleep, when you're no longer awake and thinking, but you know you're not quite asleep. And it's nothing. And yet, the absence of suffering, the absence of thinking, the absence of feeling, the absence of labels, the absence of judgment, the absence of all of that makes us call that peace. And it's around when we sleep too. People think it's gone, but how do we know if we've had a good night's sleep or not? Someone says, "How was your night's sleep?" And you say, "I slept well." That's that observer that's way back. It's not the one who judges you that's right behind your personality. It's further back in that nothingness, like the sky that's always there, that has no edges to the weather. And the weather has no edges to you when you're outside. There's no edge. There's a limitlessness that we don't want to necessarily believe. But think of that seed that's planted in the dark, and it grows from the soil and the water, and then it pushes up into the concrete, if there's concrete on top of it. Don't you love that? A grass can push through concrete. And that's how powerful we are if we allow the knower of the self with a small s, the knower of the personality with a small p, the knower of your thoughts with a small t, the knower of your feelings with a small f. We're not asking anyone not to think or feel. We're asking all of us what the mystics have asked for centuries. Where is and what is the big S, the self that is all powerful, that is one with the one, And so let's come back into this room slowly, if you like, with soft eyes. And notice when you remember what your 11 was, or your 5, or your 1, if it's changed. Can't be in 2 places at once, as Dov told us. And when we look back at the Zoom cameras, we have the opportunity to see each other differently in this millisecond. We can see each other as ourselves with a different outer clothing, a different outer skin, a different age. But our clothing changes, our age changes, our faces change. But there's something that has never changed that you know, and that is the feeling of I. You've been the same when you were 5, and you're the same I now. How can that be? Because the I is eternal, and we know it, but we don't know it with our small mind. We don't know it with our feelings. And this I can connect to all our ancestors and all that are to come, because it isn't limited by a body. And this is not a concept. That part about eternity, the small mind sometimes doesn't want to believe. But how can it be that we're the same I that we've always been? And we like to think, many of us, that we believe in science. Science says, quantum physics, we're just quantum fields relating to each other in these quirky little energy bundles, each one perfect as it is. And we can integrate science as long as we don't make gods out of our thoughts and feelings. I think there's something we all have in common, and that's the desire to integrate the oneness with our lived experience. We come from different walks of life. We've had different hits and different pleasures, but we have this all in common. And it's what we're desiring when we're seeking happiness, the absence of suffering. Rose, how was that for you? Did it bring you any peace? Yes, it did. I'll let you keep that to yourself with that thumb up. Keep that experience. And if you want to speak at any time, we can talk about stages of grief, but I have a sense right now to let you stay with your experience and let it be true and not talk for you. But it's up to you. You want to put in the chat a word or a sentence that struck you, that strikes you right now. I'll see what my word would be. You know, I don't remember anything I said. I was enjoying it while I was speaking. I was receiving it. But it's because the small mind can't remember these things. Buoyant, acceptance, gratitude. Let me not see myself as limited. Lesson 250. That's absolutely fantastic, Dov. I guess he was talking about Dylan. I'm not sure. Let's see, what is it? A lot of things were striking me. I think it's good that my mind has stopped. I'll take that. A stopped mind. A stopped mind. Open heart. Let's make every moment new. Dov was talking about Rosh Hashanah, and that's a new day, a new calendar year. Let's look into, thank you, Dov, flowing. Let's look into this millisecond all the time and see if there's a story. And if there's a story, go back and go back until there's no story. And that could be our connection. If anybody's willing to help me with some research, you could try out during your week when you find yourself having forgotten this oneness. Would you try saying 3, 2, oneness? We have found, and I've done some more research, that 3, 2, 1 is a universal understanding of hypnosis. And so the mind, it wakes the mind up, but it also, the reason I'm liking it is that it acknowledges that we are in a habit, we're in a trance, when we're in the small self, when we're living from the ego, we're in a kind of trance. It's just a habit, it's not evil. It's just the way we've been trained, the conditioned self. And so I'm interested to see if that works for other people. 3, 2, oneness. 3, 2, oneness. A memory of whatever oneness is to you in your language, in your traditions. Dov, you want to respond? Or anybody else, do you want to share anything of what happened for you today? Softening of the edges, nice, peace and rest. John, please.
Yeah. I experienced a softening of the edges there because I started off with a 10, and I don't know Rose's experience, that's for sure. But my experience was still a 10. What happened to me this week? I got a big shock, and it was really destabilizing. And then the next day, it was kind of totally dissipated, and it went away. But for 24 hours, it was brutal. And so I put that on the list, on my list. And in my when you went to about softening of the edges and the sky beyond, you know, there's no joining and stuff like that. That was really it was quite a nice experience for me, and I was able to reduce mine from 10 to an 8. I mean, I'm still in ricocheting, but I'm grateful for that 2 drop on it. You know, like it gives me more perspective, a better grip of it. So, anyways,
Is it something you want to discuss, John? Do you want to keep it to yourself, or do you want to tell us what it's about?
well, my wife is in long-term care, and I got the call from my daughter that she's been taken to the hospital with pneumonia, and I just spoken to her that morning, and everybody's saying how how devastating what it is, the pneumonia, and my mind went crazy. And so basically, it just, I just was bananas. And then the next day, I phoned the hospital, and she's sitting up, eating, having lunch, having a great time. It was, whatever happened to her, she had no oxygen or something, but, like, it was like a resuscitation back to life, according to my ego mind, according to my story anyway, and other people's stories about pneumonia when you're old and stuff like that, so that was my experience that I shared.
Yeah. And so what part of that, was it the fright that you might lose her? Was it the word pneumonia? Was it that they didn't tell you, or just the shock that something had changed? What
I thought she's a goner. She's a goner. I got out my all of my books on not grieving, but like passing on and all that kind of stuff. I was getting totally ready for all that. And oh my God, it was my story was, it was my mind was made up, this is her day, and her time. So
how did you feel about getting her back, that she didn't die?
Oh, I took her flowers today. So it was, it's just, that's what I'm saying, it was, I have no idea what Rose is going through. I really don't, because, I just freak out with what I got.
But it just shows you, I mean, it's really, Lynn, we'll go to you in just a second. It just shows us that it's not the reality. Your wife didn't even die. You went to attend in the shock of an idea that this meant something. So it's really teaching for all of us. We do this all the time. When we're in the small self, this is exactly what Dov's non-slide, his share from Bob Dylan was about. This is what we get if we make up these conclusions, these stories, we add it to the moment. The moment is nothing without the story. It's not good, it's not bad, it's nothing. It just is. It's just the weather.
Yeah.
Doesn't everybody raise your hand if you think that was a great teaching that John gave us? Oh my God, it was fantastic. Thank you for sharing the details, because, had your wife died, it would have been a different teaching, but it's even better a teaching that she didn't, and you went to 10 anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I had her dead and buried, if that's for sure. And that's why I wrote on Dov's quote. That was absolutely amazing what he brought up all about
Perfect.
and all that, That was so great,
Dov was in sync. Yeah. And we are, that's the thing. We can relate to everyone about everything. We had a conversation in one of my classes where one sister called the other one inauthentic. And it got me started thinking, and we had a whole process and we worked it out. But it got me, because it was upset, everybody paid attention. And we all had, I don't know if we all, but I got to really look at what is authenticity and how can an ego be authentic? Let's just put it that way. Egos are looking for fixes. Egos are selfish, are self-centered. I mean, it's the nature of what egos are, So if I have secrets, how can I be authentic? If there are things I wouldn't want people to know about me, that, like the Course says, there are no secrets, but we think there are, and we prefer that one person, right? So I've banished the word from my vocabulary, because who's more authentic and less authentic is just what Dov wrote in. Why are we doing that? It's not even true. And we're all the same. Why would we be making those distinctions, right? I mean, am I the only one who relates to that word that way? But telling the truth as best we know it is, I think, very, very important at any particular moment. But what is that truth? Is it filled with thoughts and feelings, or is it truth with a capital T? So how does it work for you all if you're having a rough day and you do an affirmation above it? How does that work? Does it sometimes work? Do you feel like a fraud?
I would like to insert here what Rose put down as a comment. Mark Twain said something like, "I've experienced so many catastrophes, most of which never happened," with a big wink and smile, and that's true. And the funniest thing is that Rafi followed with exactly why that is. Regardless of the incident, the ego immediately goes to the worst case scenario. And that's exactly what John was saying. His mind already thought it was over. It was a done deal, because that's what the ego figures. The ego only sees the things that ego wants to see through its interpretation. What Bob Dylan was saying, I don't have any rules about what it should be. I see things clearly, exactly the way it is. I'd like to say something about water also. I've often said that water is the most powerful force on the planet. You can see what water does when it actually moves rocks. Water can move anything. It just keeps on flowing and flowing, and that's exactly what water is. Everything flows into the ocean. The oceans go on up, and you have things like Ida, and sometimes we say, well, I don't want another Ida, but basically, it's the water is a universal solvent. Now, if you do dishes like I do, that water can clean absolutely anything. Sometimes you put a little detergent in there, but basically water cleans anything and everything. And when you were talking about the water being 96% or 94% of the body, I mean, that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness says, no matter what it is, it doesn't really mean anything. Water moves everything around. It doesn't mean anything. When you saw me put up that thing, let me not see myself as limited, that's lesson 250 happens to be today's lesson. And I've noticed over the many years, there's no accident. If you're doing the lessons on a regular basis, the lesson that you're doing for today's lesson is lesson 250, goes very perfectly with what you're going through. And I think that what you were speaking about, Rosalind, is that we're not limited to this story. Let me not see myself as limited. Ken Wapnick actually puts up his commentary on this, which I always read every morning. If I want to know myself as limitless, without limits, which is true, eternal, I must see everyone else the same as limitless. The choice is mine. The vision of sinlessness or innocence, and water cleanses everything, or the judgment of guilt, which means you have a stain that you can't remove. But water can remove any stain, absolutely. So just want to mention that today's lesson goes right along with your meditation. Let me not see myself as limited, lesson 250.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So beautiful, so beautiful. And I want to say that that's where the sisters got to. That's where the whole group got to. We got to this sinlessness like the water. Is that right? Is that true? The people that were there, did we not get there?
Yes.
So sometimes we have to go through things, and what seems to take us off track, like the pain or the suffering, can be the track back to love. It certainly was for us this week, right? For those people that were there. Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Rosalind,
Yeah.
just on that point to bring back to truth, I just noticed my friend Sally White showed up here today, and I don't know how the hell she came here, but I'd like to welcome her to our group, and she's from Toronto too. I know that she used to come to our Course in Miracles group. So I'd just like to say welcome, Sally, to our group, and we'd love to have you here. And all these people are beautiful, and they'll support you in any way possible, believe me.
Welcome, Sally.
I'm a friend. I'm a friend of Rosalyn's from a long time, so that's what I'm doing here. So hi,
Sally
John.
and I worked together a whole year. We were co-facilitators. We did a great job together. We were yin and yang somehow. We were a couple together. We balanced each other really well. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for being here, Sally. And thank you, John, for welcoming her. I remembered suddenly something that came from the meditation. Did you love the grass pushing through the cement? I mean, isn't that not amazing that grass can push through cement? That's the power that we have as well. I feel like we should check in with you, Rose. How you doing now? Are you still here? I know you had to leave early.
I wonder if Pat could please share verbally what you just posted. Turn on your,
Okay.
turn on.
Rose first.
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Yeah, today was actually a pretty good day for some reason, and so when you asked about what my number was, I thought it was in reference to how it was when it all happened, as opposed to.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I understood.
No, I said yes, because that's what we do. We go back to the worst to, like if someone says, how are you? When we're experiencing something big, we go back to the worst of it to describe how we are. Anyway, go ahead. So.
Oh, well, I try to stay whatever is in the moment. If it's feeling like it was 6 months ago, then I say that. If it's feeling pretty good, then I say, oh, it's pretty good,
Wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
I do have to go in about 2 minutes. So thank you, everyone. I hope to see you.
I would like to say one thing, Rose, since we're in the kind of in the mind chatting here. What I know about grief, and it's only my experience, and nobody's an expert on grief. We each do it how we do it.
Right.
There's no, one must be in shock when a life change happens, or we're disconnected, where we would be in our heads, we would be not connected to our feelings and our thoughts. That level is very important. The other stages of grief, and I'm a therapist. Are you a therapist also?
No.
No. Okay.
Not officially. Lots of people come to me, but I'm not officially.
Okay, but I was raised, as many of us, even if we're not therapists, we know the stages of grief.
Mhm.
What I experienced, I expected the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining. And I started to do them, and I didn't care, I felt entitled to do them. But what I learned was they closed me off from love. That love was so present. Every time someone cared, even a stranger, they didn't have to be my support group. But when they looked at me with kindness, I was so open that I connected to the kindness, made me cry. Where before that would not have touched me. I wouldn't have even felt it if somebody said, oh, your daughter has this or that. It wouldn't have gotten in. But there is so much love, which depression turns you in, bargaining, you're fighting with what is, anger turns you in and away. And there was a gift in being open and allowing the love that was present. And I became more open and more open. And that it's just, all I want to say is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross never meant those stages to be prescriptive and the way it has become. And they don't lead to acceptance, in my opinion. Acceptance happens anyway, because if it happens anyway, but not because of anger, depression, bargaining. That, in my experience, doesn't lead to acceptance. So it's just one person's experience, and I know you've had yours, and yours is as valid and important as mine.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Blessings on everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Bye, Rose.
Hey, Rose. So this poem that I wrote was written on the top of a mountain as I was looking at a rock. And what happens with the rocks up there is that water gets into the rocks, and then when it gets cold, the water expands as ice and it breaks open the rocks. So this was the poem, Water and Stone. Solid rock, we say, but watch how water carves it, works its way into the hearts of boulders to explode them. Fluid strength teaching inflexibility, who is the master.
Wow. You're a poet as well as a songstress. Wow.
There was another one I wrote up at the top of the mountain. There were these incredible alpine flowers, and they're so small. And I said, thank you for this tiny flower. Its beauty is too big for my eyes.
Too big for my eyes. Wow. So gorgeous. Lynn, I'm sorry. I meant to get back to you earlier.
I'm just grateful I was able to get in the group. It took me a while this time. Namaste, mighty companions. Okay. I got these.
Woo! Nice.
Yeah, and it inspired me. I melded with them. It inspired me to write a poem, which I'd like to share.
Yes, please.
I call it To My Roses. Your thorns removed, just like mine. Such joy, the beauty of velvet petals. I would not have pulled you from the earth, but gifts unknown beyond mind. I will replenish you with purified water and aspirin added to slow decay. Sweet space together of always now. Our essence dwells past what withers.
Wow.
Thank you, Lynn.
Is it your birthday?
Sunday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Who's the beloved that sent you those flowers?
I used to date a man 31 years ago or 32 years ago, or even longer than that. And one day I was at Barnes and Nobles and I looked over and I says, Chuck, and he says, Lynn, and, and he lives in California now, but we're friends. We're friends, and he's in from California, and he got me that and this amethyst.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah, he's only in for a week, but I bought him A Course in Miracles, and he loves it.
Oh.
So another one, Spreading the Light. So grateful for us.
That's beautiful, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share the light?
How do I bring my hand down?
Just say the same thing.
There's so much light here.
Rico, do you have something to say?
Mayfer?
Hi, my friends, my brothers in light. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to live this experience with you. And I feel so blessed today, so blessed. I feel so happy, and I hug all you, everyone, with gratefulness, because I was biking today and I was listening the way to heart. Some audios that are in YouTube. Maybe you hear about it, the way to heart. And it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And I was like in a lot of connection with Jesus, and I feel him. I feel that he's with me all the time, and that every word that I was listening was like try to make me laugh, and I say, okay, that is so nice that he's with us, that we are not alone, that it's like we are so blessed, and we need to haggle whatever experience that we are crossing, even if we don't understand, or it's not good, or it's bad, whatever, doesn't mean anything. And I am grateful to experience that, and I want to continue in that way. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Should we have Pat take us out with a song?
Be glad to. And what Mayford just said made me think of this one. Thank God for these blessings. Thank God for this day. Thank God we are gathered together to say, thank God. Thank
It's
you all.
beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Ended with a
Thank
kiss.
Thank God.
So sweet.
Thank you, Pat. I love you.
See you tomorrow morning.
Love you, Rico. Hi.
Love you more. Happy birthday, my friend.
Aw, thank you.
I'm in Heartbreak Hotel now. You got another man.
Friends. That, one thing about getting older, you appreciate less drama.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Mwah.
Thank you
Love
so much.
you.
Good night,
Love you,
everybody.
John.
Peace
Take
and
care,
love.
man.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you so much. So sweet. So sweet.
What a lovely meeting. I love this. Thank you.
Gracias.
Mwah.
Happy birthday, Lynn.
Thank you, Dov. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a nice evening. Very nice.
Mwah.
Enjoy. Love you.
Love
Good
you.
night.
Good night.